Lisa,
Hi, Lucy.
hi. I have a question. Maybe while everyone's waiting to kind of get going, I could
Okay.
just ask you this now in case it's relevant. I've been wondering about the home assessment program for neighborhoods where there's already some sort of organized wildfire preparedness program in place, like in Evergreen and Conifer, and whether you've run into that and what your thoughts are on whether it would actually be counterproductive to have a sort of homegrown neighborhood program going on in a place where there's already an established program, and whether what you're doing is obviously very educational and helpful for everybody, but in terms of implementing it, it would be more for places where they don't have some established like fire department program.
Yeah, if there's already something that's being used, I hopefully what we're teaching you is supposed to be the same basic concepts as what the other programs are using. Sometimes you have a slight difference in the number of feet or something, but no, yeah, if there's already something that's working, going through what we've gone through so far, you already know the concepts. Maybe the details of how you fill out the form are different. Um, for example, there's a form called the Home Ignition Zone Evaluation Form, but it's only 2 pages long and it doesn't give you any real clues on what to write. So that's the exact concept that we're teaching you, but we wanted, I liked the home assessment checklist because it gives you so much it gives you structure to go by. But now that you've gone through it, like once you've evaluated your own home with it, it'll give you practice in thinking about it. But if you end up having to use a different form, or the concepts are all still the same. Does anybody else have a comment on that? Dave, do you want to weigh in on that? Dave is our Colorado State Forest Service manager, forester.
I would say if you can get somebody from one of our offices, wherever you're located, or your fire department to come out and walk the property with you, I'm really a firm believer that the best recommendations are made when you actually see what's there. Because everything is a little different, and slopes or property lines or small groups of trees are all relevant. And if you can get an expert to come out and give you an assessment based on what's actually there, you're probably better off. We have general guidelines in our publications. And by the way, a whole new defensible space publication is due out probably early this summer. I just got the draft of it in my inbox to look at and more or less review this afternoon, and I haven't even looked at the draft yet, but the old one should be usable until the new one comes out. The big difference in the new one is the zones will be more in line with what NFPA is recommending, the 5-foot zone, then the 30-foot zone, then the 100-foot zone. So I kind of rambled on. Did I answer your question?
I guess my what I'm really getting at is not the content and how things may be different or not, but if you have say a fire protection district like Evergreen or Elk Creek or some others maybe, or Boulder, where they have a program and the program is being run by the fire department with the goal of having assessments done to a certain standard that they're aware of so that it can be used for things like a certificate for insurance or for realty listings or something, then they like to have that sense that everything is being done consistently. And I guess they may wonder whether if you have neighborhoods that are doing their own, whether they would be, whether there would be a sort of standardized approach there, and whether that would be an issue.
You know, I think there's so many different forms and standards. NFPA has one. I think fire adapted communities kind of have one. One was kind of presented to you last week, I believe. And, you know, they differ in certain ways, but in the big picture, they all basically say the same thing. And, you know, I think if depending on your fire department or who you talk to, I think the big items are going to be the same, even though they may use a little different form or a different assessment technique. But in the end, it all should be separate the trees and reduce the ladder fuels and address the ember ignition potential of the home. And, you know, if you use either one of any of those forms, basically you get to the same end. And I'm still not sure I'm answering you well. So did that tell you what you needed to know?
To some extent, I guess it's just more a question of the process. If these fire departments have a process they go through where they have, you know, one of their crew go out and they do this assessment and they meet with the homeowner, and then there's the expectation that the work's going to get done, and then they go back and they inspect what's been done and they tick it off and they give an assessment, a certificate, then they have a, you know, a very well-defined process, and they know, because they've trained their guys in their fire department, exactly what's going to be said and what's going to be noted and how it's going to be inspected, and whether if it's not done quite that way, whether that would be an issue to be having two processes going on in the same neighborhood that are not to the same end.
Yeah, I think, you know, probably the important thing is that whoever does the assessments for a neighborhood or a community, you know, is probably telling you the same thing. And I think, you know, most fire departments are knowledgeable. Their people can give you good advice. So, you know, if there may be differences between fire departments and things like that, but probably being large material differences that one department would tell you something directly opposite from the other. I don't think that's going to be the case.
And Lucy made a comment about getting a certificate. The only time I'm aware of a second visit ever even happening is when there might be grant money involved, and then you've made an agreement when you got your first evaluation done, and they say, well, you make an agreement. If you do this, and this on your property, we both agree that would be enough. And then that evaluator has to come back and see if you've actually done the work and sign off on it for you to get your grant money. But as far as like working with insurance companies, as you mentioned, I don't know about that part.
I think that actually insurers will accept some kind of authoritative certificate as proof. We've had the experience where people get a letter from their insurer saying you have to remove all the trees within 30 feet of your house. And if they can present a certificate for that, and I'm in Jeffco, so Jeffco actually has certified defensible space consultants. If you can present a certificate that you have certified defensible space per one of these Jeffco approved consultants, that has always sufficed.
Yeah, you know, because counties are the regulatory authority, different counties often have slightly different regulations for defensible space. I think, yeah, Jefferson County requires a certificate, and I think they contract with our Golden office to do that. But to get a certificate of occupancy, you have to have someone trained and knowledgeable come out and inspect the property and certify that it has proper defensible space. At least, it meets the county regulations for defensible space. El Paso, Teller, Park County, where I work, they don't require that. So that's, not usually something we do. What I do frequently is when the insurance company refuses to insure somebody, I can come out and do an inspection and write up a little report that says you need to remove, that tree next to your deck or the one within 30 feet of the home. And then I'll come out and re-inspect it and certify to the insurance company that it meets our standards. And, talk about varying standards. Insurance companies are, excuse me, they're notorious both for having their own standards that can be all over the map, and also their vague terminology. You mentioned clearing all the trees within 30 feet. And that's, I think Allstate, I'll pick on them, they're notorious for saying something like that. And I've gone out to meet with homeowners who have nothing but aspen around the home. And whoever the inspector is who comes out, his little booklet says remove all trees within 30 feet of the home. And Allstate is telling him to clear cut the aspen. I can usually write a letter in that case and say the aspen aren't an issue and they'll accept it. But yeah, insurance companies are all over the map, and terms like clearing or clear cutting, they use those with really no respect for what it means in technical terms. So that can be a real issue.
As far as like what we learned last week and what we're going to learn this week, I know that Dave's our Colorado State Forest Service guy. Thank you, Dave. And he's reviewed everything we went over last week and what we're going to do this weekend. I'm confident that all the concepts we're teaching you are all we're all rowing in the same direction, if that helps.
Yeah, if you follow the basic concepts we're learning, that the weasel wording is there's never a guarantee. But if you separate the fuels and eliminate the ladder fuels and make your barrier around the foundation, you're going to be in a position where you have the best chance of survival. And it's difficult. We say 10 feet of space between trees, but then I always try to hedge that because we want you to leave the good, vigorous trees, and they aren't always conveniently spaced so that, all the good trees are separated with 10 feet between the crowns. And again, kind of goes back to, it's really good to have an on-site visit, because if you have two trees that are 5 feet apart, but you still have space around that little clump, you're probably fine. And that's where trying to write a standard that fits every property and every locale throughout the entire state is just next to impossible. Again, I think about an evaluation from a professional with experience and who knows what the fire will do in a certain place is probably the best standard. I don't call them standards, I call them guidelines for that reason, which is a kind of nebulous point, but I think guideline for those broad recommendations is probably better word than standard. And I'm still not sure I answered the question properly. I hope I didn't make it more confusing, but it varies. That's the short answer.
I've got
Lucy, I
another
would
way to ask. Oh, go ahead, Andre.
The only thing I would add, Lucy, is that what we're talking about are differences around the margins. So once again, this is a people business here, and you want to have a good relationship with that fire department or whomever's setting the standard here. So if all the major aspects are common to whatever you're seeing on the outside, I would just go with whatever standard that they provide. And then if there are differences that I think would enhance, then I would bring that up to that authorizing body and say, hey, would you consider adding these considerations to the standard? And then that would bolster it. So then, but mostly I think it would be good just to go ahead and stay with the standard you're working. It has commonality amongst everyone. You're talking the same language here. And when they see your standard or they see your assessment, then they all know what they're looking at very quickly. They don't have to do any interpretive language or anything like that. So that's what would be my recommendation. Okay, Lisa, are you ready to get going here? We can start with the homework on my end here of the pictures, or do you want to go straight into yours?
I think I just messed you up. Hold on, let me. But right now, just so I know if I did it right, are you seeing the slide that says homework for module 2?
Yes, I see yours.
Oh, good. I'll stop now so you can show the pictures. But I'm practicing again. There we go.
Yeah. Well, we just have one set of pictures to review, so we'll go with and it's with Paula Carnes and Bailey, and we have a few sets of those pictures here. Paula, I thought I saw you on. Are you on? Correct? Maybe it's a different Paula.
Yes, we're here. I just
Okay.
got to put my microphone on. And my husband David's going to talk about this, so.
Okay, all right. Yeah, tell us what you see, what your concerns are in the pictures, and we have one more set after this. Two slides worth of pictures here.
Yeah, well, we're concerned, just like the other people that have shown. We live at the end of about 1.5 miles private road, and it's the only way out from for any reason. So we did have a fire here in
2007.
2002, I think. So a lot of the general area is, I think, not a problem, but because of the way stuff drains, all the seeds of trees and bushes have washed down to the sides of the road. And so we have a lot of trees that border right on the road with you can see their crowns come out over the road. And then we have a lot of, I don't know what it is. It's some kind of scruffy shrub. And it looks to me like it would be a perfect kindling thing.
Mountain mahogany. Mostly.
A lot of it is, yes.
A lot of it's mountain mahogany.
Mountain
And
mahogany's okay. Yeah.
Oh, is it? And I think some boulder raspberry and something else is in that shrubbery.
but I view the road as dirt, so I view that as kind of like a fire break. But it seems to me if we have a lot of shrubs and a lot of trees right up to the edge of the road on each side, that's not necessarily a good thing. So that's the one concern. And then the other concern, if you look at the pictures of the house, that's our house. And you can see that most of the trees are cut up at least 10, 15 feet. So the ladder fuel, I think, is that's something I was concerned about. But the main thing is the trees that are left, they're pretty close together in most places. So that was the other thing. I didn't know whether they actually need to be thinned out or whether they're okay because they're not, we don't really have a lot of trees left from the fire. And then,
An okay from the fire department.
then the other thing I noticed in our pictures compared to pictures from the other groups, we don't have anything green here except for the pine trees. Our shrubs aren't green. Our grass never gets green. We don't have any water. And so it looks to me like even the low grass, if there's a spark, we're going to have a fire quick. So that's something else I was concerned about how to handle that.
Okay.
So that's pretty much my concerns. When we built the house in 2012, and we did have to have a guy come out from the fire department and sign off on the area around the house before we started building in terms of defensible space. So there were some trees we had to take down at that time. But since the house has been up, we've never had anybody look at it. And we do have vegetation growing under the deck and up against the side of the house. So we have work to do there. So that's pretty much our concerns.
Okay, thank you very much. I think in terms of, you could talk to many different people here, and I guess actually let's let Lisa talk about it. Any concerns that you have here, Lisa, since you taught the module with the driveway here and the space that they're showing?
It's hard. I'm having trouble just on the spur of the moment just saying something, but all I want to say is you're in the right place. You're asking the right questions, and I don't want to just say anything. Does anybody feel knowledgeable right now?
I would, consider those trees that are very close proximity to the driveway that have branches overhanging the driveway itself. I would consider removing those along the way so that you wouldn't have anything overhanging. So if you do get a fire and it happens to be in that area, at least ingress and egress wise, it'll be a little bit safer here. Everybody's view of how much you need to remove is different. When I start to see overhanging, then that kind of bothers me, at least from a personal perspective, and thinking about branches that could get, like you mentioned before, they're kind of close together. So if they were to catch fire, but that can all be mitigated if you want to keep that by an early evacuation decision. So it's just, food for thought. If you thought that it would make it more enticing for the firefighters to come in too, I would consider it here. And then you want to keep other trees and grow them, but that would be my recommendation. The grass seems to be, fine here. It's not too high here. So if you keep that, down and not growing up, I would be okay with that. And then looks like you have sloping ground here. So I'm not sure about the terrain around it. So I would, think about fires like to follow gullies, as I understand it, and then they do like to go uphill too. So I'm not sure how wind moves in your area as well. The fuel weather topography is, are the main considerations for fire behavior.
That's one thing that somebody else brought this up with their pictures. We do have a drainage ditch type thing that runs down the center of the property, and it's full of willows.
Cool. Mhm,
Willows and aspens.
Willows and aspens, and
mhm.
so
Is there a lot of liquid? You know, is it one of those dry creeks that you have around here, or do you
Yeah,
have
it
moisture
only
in it?
gets water in, you know, if we have big rains and when there's a lot of snow melt up in the mountains.
Gotcha. So yeah, you know, I'm not sure what's around there. So you have to take it all in, and I'd hate to say that without having the holistic picture here, but it's one of those ones that I would bring in an expert here to take a look at the whole area and give you that perspective of what, if fire came from each direction, what would be the behavior that would occur with that vegetation in that particular situation. Okay, all right, we don't have
Willows,
David.
I have no idea about willows.
Yeah, David's not on, so Lisa, that's it for the pictures, and so I'm going to stop sharing and over to you.
Okay, the module that I'm presenting tonight, hold on, let me click on here, is exactly an hour. So we do have like 5 more minutes if anybody else wants to share any surprises that they discovered this week in evaluating your own house. Does anybody want to share anything real quick?
This is Kristen. I had a question. On the inside the house, the first page, it says gasoline, oily rags, and other flammable materials are stored in approved safety cans. Cans are placed in a safe location away from the base of buildings. Does that mean you're supposed to store your gas just on a shelf?
We're going to get to that one this week.
Okay. And then let me throw out, just the other thing would be, if you know you have an approaching wildfire, where do you put the propane tanks that are, you know, like gas grill size?
Yeah, they should be either far away from the house or inside the garage with the door closed, but not just out where, don't throw them out in the grass where the grass is tall and the grass could heat them up. But if you either put them way far away from your house or within the garage. I know that one.
Okay.
Yeah, this week we're going to finish covering the rest of those pages that we didn't get to last week. So like the one about the oily rags, I'm drinking some water.
Lisa, what is a Class A roof?
We're going to talk about that next too.
All right.
You guys are good. I can tell that you guys actually read your homework, and you're right, we didn't get to those yet. Bravo. Well, I might as well jump in, and then as we get to the end tonight or next week, we'll ask a lot more questions. But first of all, thanks to Andre for giving me an extra monitor this week. Really will make a difference in my presentation. One other thing I wanted to mention at the beginning was we had a request from one of the neighborhoods this week that they would like to have some short blurbs and videos to use in social media. You know, instead of having an hour presentation, they want to have it in a sentence. And I can see the appeal of that. Matthew from Woodmore, he battles this all the time because he's our forestry manager for our HOA, and he emphasized again that face-to-face interaction is really the most effective way to create effective change. But here we are with this amazing group of all of you who all have ideas. And so as you're going along, like even tonight, as Dave gave me a couple ideas. If you think of some short ways of saying all the things we're taking a lot of words to say, please make a note of those as we're going through all the modules, and we're going to find a way to share them with all of you at the end. So like tweet length messages that we can share with each other to help bolster, like if you're going to do a social media kind of messaging, in addition to, as you're trying to round up people to come to your neighborhood meeting, for example, just keep notes on those and let's share them as we go along. Does that sound good? I wanted to check if we had any more volunteer properties for us to do demonstrations, especially in the monument area. We have some ideas, but we're not really sure if those are the right ideas yet. We're hoping to find properties that really haven't had any work done yet and don't know where to start. But be sure and write to Andre if you're interested in being our example. We're hoping to have both examples kind of close together so we can do them efficiently within the 2 hours. Okay. So I put into the chat, and if you can't see it yet, Andre will send it out with the attachments after tonight's lesson. But we're going to have a 2-minute video that you're going to love, just like last week's video that I bet you're going to love, and you're going to want to share that as far as a short blurb to share with people. So we'll get that to you. But tonight's module is about how to harden your home against flying embers. And so what is in the middle of your home ignition zone? It's your home. And so home hardening is a concept that everybody needs to consider, whether you're in the forest or not. If you're in a suburban neighborhood in the middle of Colorado Springs, you still need to consider home hardening because those flying embers can come and land on your house. It's not about where you are located. It's about your home ignition zone and what have you done to treat what's under your control. And oh yeah, why are we offering this class for free? It's because the price has already been paid. We just want to remind you of that. So in a few minutes, I'm going to show you this short video demonstrating what the ember showers act like when they hit a house. And this photo is from the video. We've said it before, we'll say it again. Most homes destroyed during wildfires catch fire due to the ember showers. And as Dr. Jack Cohen said, I love this, if your home doesn't ignite, it won't burn down. And it's been scientifically proven that hardening your home will increase your home's chances for survival. So the National Fire Protection Association, which helped put together this program, is now recommending that new building codes require all homes to be ignition resistant, which would mean regulating types of building construction materials. We'll see what happens with that. That's awfully controversial because of affordability reasons. And as you know from the last class, the other big factor is the types and distribution of shrubbery and vegetation. So don't forget that as you get into the home hardening part. We're going to continue using this home assessment checklist, which it sounds like you all looked at. And as you run into questions at your house, we recommend you get in touch with your local fire department or the State Forest Service for your specific questions. And you all have it already. So what we're doing with home hardening is analyzing every nook, cranny, and vulnerability of your home from the point of view of a flying ember that is blowing around your house. We're going to look for the chinks in the armor. And it's funny because the flying embers to us are just pesky little sparks. And even though they might be scary, you would be waving them away if they were by you. But if those sparks find fuel, wherever it is, on the ground or inside your attic, then fire science takes over and they'll smolder and burn if all they need is fuel, oxygen, and heat. And they can sneak in the dumbest little places, but that's what we're going to look at tonight, is where those dumb little places are and what you can do to fix it. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Stop share. Andre's going to play this video. What it's going to show, there's a 2-minute video. It's done by the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety. And what it shows is 2 types of construction and what happens when the embers hit it. So we're going to play the whole video all the way through, and then we're going to go back and play the first minute of it again so you can see it again. This is where Dr. Jack Cohen did a lot of his research at the Institute for IBHS.
So from start to finish, we're going to start with our ember generators, which we use to recreate a realistic ember exposure. Embers are those small burning and smoldering particles that may travel ahead of the fire front. And what we do with our generators is we create the realistic exposure, and in our wind tunnel, we're able to throw them at a building. And then we have a building that has two sides to it, a good side, which uses wildfire resistant construction, and what we're considering a typical building that we would see in a wildfire prone area. Exactly as we expected, that mulch on the ground there caught fire from the embers. The fire from the mulch burned up under this deck, and this whole deck was on fire. And so this fire on this deck caused flames right against the home. And then if we look there at the base of the door, it was actually the flames from this deck that burned through the bottom of the door, and on the inside of the house we started to see smoke and flames. And so because this deck was a combustible material attached to the building, when the embers led to the ignition of this deck, we got flames inside of the building. Here we are on the wildfire resistant side of the house, where we had non-combustible siding, a 5-foot non-combustible zone and a 6-inch gap. We had a metal gutter and multi-pane windows, and we see in comparison to the non-wildfire resistant side, this side had the same ember exposure. If you look here in the mulch, you can actually see some of the embers that had accumulated, but because they had no susceptible fuel to ignite, they just landed there and fizzled out. Now here we have ornamental vegetation that again is susceptible to the embers, but because it's more than 5 feet away from the home, it didn't have enough energy to ignite, and it never led to a flame impact on the building. So from start to finish, we're going to start with our ember generators, which we use to recreate a realistic ember exposure. Embers are those small burning and smoldering particles that may travel ahead of the fire front. And what we do with our generators is we create the realistic exposure, and in our wind tunnel, we're able to throw them at a building. And then we have a building that has two sides to it, a good side, which uses wildfire resistant construction, and what we're considering a typical building that we would see in a wildfire prone area.
Well, I hope that helped to let you watch it again. And if you ever want to, a much more useful way than watching TV at night is to go to YouTube and start looking for videos about ember experiments. There's so many neat ones out there for you to watch. There's more than just that one. Let's see here. Okay, are you seeing my slide again, Andre, the ember storm one?
Yes.
So notice, I hope you saw in the video how quickly the ignition happened. It was that fast. And just, it's so fast. It's amazing. I just, oh, that's real eloquent, but that's what I mean to say. Oops. Here we go. All right. Now we're going to go through the rest of the checklist that we didn't get to last week. So we're going to start on page 2. We're going to evaluate some things inside your house, which is for wildfire preparedness and for other kinds of preparedness. The first statement is, residents have reviewed homeowners' insurance policy and prepared an inventory of the home's contents. Have you or haven't you? It's good to take pictures of how many of everything you have, books, silverware, shirts, and for expensive items, you should take a photo of serial and model numbers and have them appraised. So that's an easy one to get a yes answer on. Store your flash drive and copies of documents and these inventory photos off-site, out of the neighborhood, not in a fireproof safe on your own property. Paper burns at 451 degrees Fahrenheit. Wildfires burn at 1500 to 2000 degrees Fahrenheit. So if you have a safe deposit box at your bank, make sure your bank is not in the same neighborhood you are, or it might also be at risk. As you can see, this is a fireproof safe that everything inside it got vaporized. Yes or no? All residents know where the gas, electric, and water main shutoff controls are and how to use them. This means mom, dad, kids, and grandma all know how to use them. For example, this is the gas meter showing where the shutoff valves are. I'm not going to go into all the detail like we would at the CERT class, but I have a wrench attached to my gas meter in front of my house so that if we're evacuating for a fire or an earthquake, I can turn off the gas on our way out. Never, ever turn the gas back on, though, if you have had to turn it off. And yes, Colorado is at risk of earthquakes, which can start fires. This is one of the ones where not applicable might be more applicable. Heavy fire-resistant drapes are installed throughout the home. If you are looking for these, you can buy them online. And this particular item is one of the ones on the list, as you can see from the Wildfire Assessment Program. But the point here is that if the drapes are closed and they're fire resistant, they could resist embers coming in open or broken windows. However, I wonder who closes their drapes anymore. This would only work if the drapes are shut. We'll talk more about windows and metal screens later as we move down the checklist. Newspapers and rubbish are regularly disposed of. Not here. If you have this many bags of pine needles or leaves waiting for trash pickup, get them out of there. This would be worth borrowing a trailer and taking them to the dump. Don't just let them sit around as you put out 2 bags a week with your trash. This is just too much. Some of this is just like last week's theme was talking about maintenance. Some of this is just habits that you get into. Yes or no? A screen is installed in front of each fireplace or stove. Yes or no? And fireplace and wood stove and charcoal grill ashes are stored in a metal container and disposed of only when cool. Either you do or you don't. By the way, it's not on here, but you should, if you use your fireplace, your chimney should be swept regularly. Creosote can build up inside of the flue and it becomes as hard as cement and it can actually block the flue. So check with your fire department if you use your fireplace regularly. Residents have created a family disaster plan and supply kit to be prepared for wildfire and potential evacuations. We're going to talk more about this in the later module about general preparedness and our community emergency response training. But for tonight's purposes, do you all have a meetup point that your whole family knows about that is not inside your neighborhood, someplace where you could all find each other when the phone lines are jammed up and there's an evacuation going on and you're all in chaos? Do you all just know if life is going crazy, we're all just going to meet at cousin Jenny's house or something? That's for tonight. Let's make that be this homework. Later on, we're going to give you some more ideas for things to do in this area. Electric and gas stoves are in good operating condition. Keep them clean. Maintenance is a theme. It hardly costs anything. Security bars on windows or doors have a quick release mechanism. They're supposed to keep burglars out, but they're not supposed to trap you in a fire. So that's why they have this item on there. This is the emblem that shows a certified fire safe door. The item says, a solid door with self-closing hinges is installed between the living areas and the garage. The point here is that they want the door to close itself and to be another barrier to sparks. Yes or no? The garage has a garage door to protect combustible materials stored there. And yes or no, the garage door perimeters are weather sealed. As you saw in the video, those flying embers are going to be looking for a way in. They're amazing how they can sneak in the smallest cracks. So if the answer is no, add this to your list. This is the question that I forgot somebody was just asking about. Gasoline, oily rags, and other flammable materials are stored in approved safety cans, and cans are placed in a safe location away from the base of buildings. And your question was, should we just have, what did you say? If we should have them out? I forgot.
Doesn't mean you put them on a shelf. Do they have to be in one of those cabinets? What does the second sentence mean in that statement? Those statements.
That's a good question. The theme here is that they want you to.
No, I'm done at 7:30.
There's an acronym that says LIES, LIES, limit, isolate, eliminate, and separate.
Okay,
And what they want you to do, somebody's not muted. They want to, anything that's flammable just needs to be in small, I'm not saying this very well. I'm coming up blank. Let's come back to this one. I can
mean, like, don't group them together. You want to not have them all together in one spot.
Yeah, like the example in my picture here is an example of how exactly not to mix all of your different kinds of dangerous substances all in one spot. So that's what in that acronym it says limit, isolate, eliminate, and separate. By isolate, they mean keep like things together so there's less likelihood of, for example, have you ever done the vinegar and bleach mixture that causes toxic fumes? I mean, the less of this kinds of stuff you can store is best, and keep them away from each other. The other example I have, I mean, this seems so simple, but piles of rags in the corner or in a cardboard box. Whole houses have burned down just because those rags had fumes in them, and the heat of the rags in the pile generated enough, it ignited, and all it was a pile of rags with some fumes on it. So there are special cabinets you can get, but even if you have these things stored out in a shed, you have to have it all labeled. But more important than the labels is just eliminate it and reduce the amount of stuff like this that you have. And this is, I mean, I'm doing my best on this one, but if you have, if you can talk to your fire department about this one, that would be a great way, because I'm getting to the point where I'm just like, well, I think this, but I don't want to pretend like I really am answering it all from, like, I don't have a college degree in that one, so.
And Lisa, I've seen in businesses where you have, like you mentioned, a separate cabinet. You're showing basically it appears like a butt can here, but there are larger containers that look like a storage locker, if you will, that have a little bit more protective measures that you have to use. So I've seen that apply to businesses where I've worked, and you had to have a requirement to have all of your flammables in that location and in a specific location also for that particular cabinet to enhance the safety.
Great, yeah. Let's see, combustibles are kept away from ignition sources such as water heaters. So don't let there be a stack of cardboard boxes next to the water heater, no paint or other flammable things close to the water heater. But also dryer lint, remove that regularly from the lint screen in your dryer, because otherwise you have dryer lint, which is fuel, and heat from the dryer and oxygen from the air. So that could create a fire too. So it's not, there are a lot of ways to goof this up. But there's a lot of, once you're aware of it, you can fix them. Tools such as a shovel, rake, or bucket are available for emergencies. And are all residents trained to use fire extinguishers? Not just you, but also your spouse and the kids. It is amazing how fast you only have a few seconds to really start using a fire extinguisher, and then once you've lost your window of opportunity, it's time to just go outside and call 911. You can look on YouTube for how to use a fire extinguisher, but a better way to do it is take the CERT class. I wore this tonight for you, my CERT vest. You get to practice with a real fire extinguisher. And be sure and check the gauge on the extinguisher and the date it should be replaced. Okay, now we're going to look outside the house, at the house itself, including the roof somebody was just asking about. Oh, one more. This is the example of the 2010 4 Mile Canyon fire in Boulder. Just as an example, this one had an awful lot of resources thrown at it. There were 39 fire engines, 12 water tenders, and 150 fire personnel. 474 homes were exposed to the fire. I'm not quite sure how they determined that, but and of those, 162 homes were destroyed. Of those that were destroyed, embers destroyed 83% of them, and only 17% of them were destroyed by the crown fire. But that's what it looked like at night. Oh boy. Okay, page 4 on your checklist. Class A roof. I love this class. A Class A roof, the examples are concrete or clay tiles, fiberglass asphalt composition shingles. There are some other shingles that are called asphalt composition, but they don't have the fiberglass in them. And that's about my level of knowledge on that one. And metal roofs are also Class A. Here's a Class C roof. That's a really badly kept one. But even a well-kept cedar shake roof is full of crevices and provides the same level of safety as a roof just made out of plywood or particle board. You can see all those little crevices that are a perfect place for the embers to get blown in and smolder. Some people say the wood shingles, they are combustible. They can be treated at the mill with fire retardant chemicals and make them into a Class B roof. However, the fire retardant properties of the chemicals become less effective with weathering, and if the shingles are painted or stained, then it messes up the fire retardant properties. So if you have a bad roof, this is an expensive one, but make it a priority to get this replaced. You know what to ask for Christmas and your birthday for the next 4 years now. And check the roof edges. This is a Class A roof because it's tile, but it has a gap under it. So just look for, we're going to look all night here for places where the sparks can blow in and catch fire from the house from the inside out. Gutters and roof edges are clear of debris. I hope so. It's easy enough to fix. If your gutters fill up with leaves or pine needles a lot, take a look at how many trees are overhanging the house and really evaluate those as we talked about last week. Think of how the embers would view this scene. To them, this looks like a Hawaiian vacation and they would never want to leave. And also notice that if, I guess it wasn't in this video, but there's another video from the IBHS lab where it shows the plastic gutters and downspouts just deforming and melting. The word isn't melting, it's deforming, but they fall right off the house anyway, and they're combustible. So, but the item number here just says clean the debris out of the gutters. Some of these items get really technical, and if you don't know what a drip edge is, what they're asking, a bunch of these questions coming up here are talking about just look for crevices just in your house. But in this case, the goal is, again, is to reduce the access to the interior structure of the roof from the embers between the roof sheathing and the fascia. I didn't know what roof sheathing or fascia was a couple of years ago, but I've had to learn it now because I'm so interested in wildfires. So now don't be tricked by this picture. The question says, debris has accumulated at the roof to wall intersections is removed. And for example, near the dormer or chimney. So the example here is of a place where the answer is no. And remember that the wind eddies will deposit the firebrands in the very same places where it deposits all the debris. So keep up there, keep at that roof. And if it's hard to clean your roof, then it might be easier to move the trees that are adding to the debris on your roof. And then in this question, it's a different question now. Roof to wall intersections are sided with a non-combustible or ignition resistant siding product? So the answer here is yes, because there's the wall there is stucco and the roof is asphalt shingles. However, you can see the second problem here is the accumulation of debris at the intersection. And so we would have taken care of that in the item before this. The nice thing about this form, I realize it's long, but if you just do one at a time and think about that question as it pertains to the whole house, you'll get through it and you'll come up with a good list of things to work on. So here's a cedar siding home, and they're also combustible, but don't worry, there are some things you can do to make them better. Here's an example of using flashing. And this flashing actually is got a rust patina on it, so it blends in with the siding, and you can't tell that there's a metal flashing there at all. But if a pile of burning embers sat there along the base of this house, they would be touching the metal instead of the wood, and they would have less chance of igniting anything because they would be nestled up against the metal. And of course, now you know from last week, we were already keeping the 0 to 5 foot zone free of fuel. In this case, it looks like they need to use their leaf blower a little bit, but the key to all these fuel-free zones is just to stop direct flame contact from happening with the house. Here's another example of metal flashing along the base of the home. So the embers can't smolder against the wood siding or the wooden deck. And this deck has, I'll get to this again later, but the deck has nice big spaces in between the boards, which is recommended because it has less chance for the debris to accumulate in there. And that's a good way to avoid smoldering too. So this whole section on venting has a lot of very specific questions. And some of it requires going up into the attic or on a ladder or using a flashlight or binoculars maybe to see what's installed. The point on all of these coming up here is to notice how vulnerable the inside of your house is due to the venting. Remember that picture I showed you at the beginning of the dragon with the scales missing? Look at the hole here behind the vent. You have to have venting. The vents do an important job. They let the moisture out. So what I hope this man has done or will do is add metal mesh behind the vent. The question they're asking us here is, venting exists in the soffit material between the soffit and the attic space? And the answer here is yes, there is venting. This isn't asking about the screening yet, but I'm kind of combining a couple ideas here. So this, like, it's interesting. This question is saying, is there venting? And if the answer is no, it's like, well, you should have venting. All houses need to have venting or there's a problem. Hi, Julia. So don't worry about being able to name all these parts to identify the problems. What you're really looking for is think like a flying ember and how to block it from getting in there. So that's, I'll give you much more examples. This is called a boxed eave. Are any vents in the eaves covered with 1/8 inch corrosion resistant metal mesh screening? If you can say that 10 times fast, we'll be done for tonight, because that's one of the best solutions for a lot of the things tonight. In this example, there's no metal mesh apparent. And just picture that blizzard storm of embers blowing up inside these eaves for 10 minutes. And what would happen when they got in there? What would they find? We don't know. You should get up there with a flashlight and see. So this one is a really long statement. If the home has open eave framing, vents have a closure device made of 1/4 inch thin sheet metal, and closures can be removed or opened after the wildfire threat has passed. That's a really long one. Remember, on all these questions, you have to be able to answer yes to all of it for it to be true. On this one, I wonder about the feasibility of stopping to close these closures when you're trying to evacuate from a wildfire. And what do you do when you're not home if the fire happens? So in this case, if I saw something like this, I would advise the homeowner what the danger is in the first place. We've got to stop these flying embers and have them install 1/8 inch metal mesh over the holes or along the whole underside of the eaves, whatever makes more sense, once they understand what the risk is. This is the bottom line on everything, is don't leave necessary openings, like these are necessary, but they're unprotected. So make sure you're protected. Now we're on page 5 of this checklist. Attic vents located on the roof are covered with 1/8-inch corrosion-resistant metal mesh screening. It's possible to buy vents that already have the screening attached on the inside of it, or you can add your own if you want to do that. You can see this if you look at your house with a flashlight, and so that you can check these on your own home. Make sure attic vents located on the roof are free of debris. This example shows a problem caused by birds making a nest in there, so it's full of flammable stuff, and then if the embers blew in there, that would be a problem. 1/8-inch metal screening is attached to the roofing under turbine vents. So you see the theme. You can inspect these through the attic where the vent attaches to the roof. The other kind of screening here shown on the right, there's a vocabulary word I want you to learn. Intumescent. That means it expands with heat exposure, and that makes it harder for embers to go through. That's an example of intumescent screening. More about vents. Yes or no, the home has low profile vents instead of dormer through roof vents. Well, why would that be important? Well, there's less opportunity for the embers to blow in. And the ridge vents are rated for high wind or rain exposure. Well, that means there's less chance for them to be ripped off by ferocious winds, leaving gaps open to the elements and embers. Skylights. Accumulated debris is removed, vegetation is pruned, and overhanging limbs are trimmed near any skylights. The key, of course, is maintenance, keeping it clean around your roof. And we're going to talk more about this again when we get to the windows section, but unfortunately, in this case, the answer is no. They've got all sorts of debris on the roof and it's starting to grow moss on it. That's not good. Yes or no, the home has tempered glass skylights instead of dome-type plastic skylights.
Yeah.
Tempered glass can withstand more heat than regular glass or plastic can. And if the embers melt right through the plastic, or if it cracks either way, then your whole home is exposed. And then this other one is about operable skylights are kept closed when a wildfire threatens. If you have those, it's a choice you have to make. It's like a habit to get into. When you go away for the day, do you close your skylights or do you want to leave them open for ventilation? If you do that, you need to know what the risk is. Yes or no, chimney and stovepipe outlets are covered with a non-flammable, corrosion-resistant screen of 1/4-inch mesh or smaller. An 1/8-inch mesh would be better. If you can't get up there to see all these things, make a list of what you'd like to check, or you've got your checklist with you, and maybe you can get a contractor or a talented neighbor who would be willing to go up there and look at what the situation is and all these hidden spots on your roof. Or it might be a contractor who can help you add the mesh where it's needed also. So something to think about. Yes or no, the chimney is at least 10 feet away from tree branches. I think they wrote this one backwards. They should have said tree branches are 10 feet away from the chimney. It's not like we're going to move the chimney. But anyway, this tree needs trimming. So in this example, we've got two kinds of siding. On the left is vinyl siding, and on the right is cement board or hardy board. Vinyl siding will soften and fall off, exposing any gaps behind it. And actually, vinyl siding, just so you know, if the sun is reflected on it by a window or something, it can even cause the vinyl siding to deform just from the sunlight. So you might want to reconsider vinyl if you can afford to. On the right is hardy board example of non-combustible siding, but other examples are stucco and brick and adobe. My house is stucco now, but it used to be cedar, and the stucco was just added on top of the cedar. So at my house, we have some hidden vulnerabilities under the foundation, and that wood can still ignite behind the stucco. So that's just something to know about. And I found some places in my house where I want to put flashing underneath the edges of the house near the ground, because I still find a vulnerability there. So when mentioning stucco siding, cracks like this should be repaired, because who knows what's behind there, and embers really could penetrate that crack, as annoying as that is. And also, any place where gas pipes or electric wires penetrate the stucco, you need to caulk around those to block those gaps. Any place where light fixtures, electric boxes, windows, anything that has a gap in it, if you can caulk it to stop the embers from getting through, then you'll be in better shape. And everyone asks about wood siding. With proper mitigation, wood siding is a reasonably safe material as long as you keep the first 0 to 5 feet free of fuel. The next 30 feet is discontinuous fuel only. Keep the wood siding well maintained, and do everything you can to avoid direct flame contact. I'll show you some more examples in a little bit about deck furniture. So that it's not that wood siding is impossible, but you need to know how to make it safer, and that's what we're doing. So yes or no, there's a 6-inch clearance between the foundation and the siding, so the siding does not extend down to the grade. This is the same kind of idea as the flashing, where this way, if the embers are piled up on the ground, it won't be able to nestle there next to the wood. It could also be concrete clearance from the ground up to the siding. This is a more open question compared to the others. It says, embers cannot accumulate or lodge anywhere on or around the siding of the home. That's kind of a more all-inclusive statement than some of these other ones that have been so more specific. So this is the place for you to analyze the whole exterior of the home from the point of view of an ember blizzard blowing around the house that looks like this. Where are the chinks in the armor? Just try and picture this to see what you might have missed when you're analyzing your house. I'd like to know what you would recommend to this homeowner for the same question. This is an example of, like, you know, it's like a catch-all for an odd situation like this. In this case, it's a wooden lattice that's built for sun protection, and it's attached to the wooden eaves of the house. They added it, so they probably don't want to remove it again, but it's got a lot of risk with the accumulation of embers. Later on, I'm going to show you a picture of putting flashing next to as a wooden fence attaches to a house. So maybe we could put flashing at the places where that wooden lattice work connects to the house. But this is where you have to start using, I want you to be able to visualize those embers so that when you get to a weird situation like this, you can come up with an idea. So now we're on page 6 of the home assessment checklist. Caulk is applied at trim to siding locations where it is missing or has failed. And the answer here is no, but that would be easy to fill in and do some caulking. Besides the roof, one of the most vulnerable parts of any home is the glass windows. Regular glass cracks and breaks at 180 degrees. Tempered glass, which is shown here with that special seal, that breaks at 630 degrees Fahrenheit. And fire burns at 1500 to 2000 degrees Fahrenheit. And when the glass fractures, of course, embers can get inside the house. So now you've learned some terminology, so let's evaluate this question now. All windows are dual or multi-pane, which is better than single pane, preferably with tempered glass. instead of single pane. You might end up with an assortment of answers here as you go around the house. I would say windows near vegetation are more vulnerable than windows that are up away from everything. And it's probably easier to remove that dangerous vegetation, like if it's a juniper, than to change the window. But eventually, hopefully, you can also get the better kind of windows. Yes or no, window screening is installed to improve performance against radiant heat exposure and to minimize the number of embers that could enter the home. And this should be metal screening, not or fiberglass, but not plastic or polyethylene, because it melts when any burning embers would hit it, and then it would immediately lose its value. So if you're not home when a wildfire happens and the windows are open, if you have metal screens, you'll be in better shape than if you didn't. So this is another one of those habits things. If you always close your windows before you leave the house, versus if you don't want to because you want the ventilation, it's just you're making an informed decision now. Okay, open crawl spaces are enclosed with non-combustible material, a process sometimes called skirting. And this is so debris and embers can't fly under there and smolder. Yes or no? Enclosed spaces are ventilated according to local building code requirements. And that's all this is asking. If you think there aren't enough vents in your house, I can't help you with that. That's a good question for your regional building authority. But the question here says, the second one is, all foundation vents that you do have 1/8-inch corrosion resistant metal screening that is in good condition. In this example, there's some paint on it, but it's not, there's no rips in it or anything, so it's better than nothing. Combustible materials stored in the crawl space or under the building are removed for a non-skirted open crawl space foundation. And this combustible material is like a pile of kindling waiting for a spark, and it's sitting right under the house. Another thing, if you're looking for something to do, is look on YouTube for pictures of combustible things. You can do all sorts of experiments from the safety of your own desk. The key everywhere is removing the fine, dry fuels that let the flames ignite and burn long enough to let the bigger stuff ignite. And like this is a campfire with kindling and a little spark, right? So let's not let those little sparks get in contact with the fuel. This is another one that might not be applicable. This might be more of a regional thing, but closable foundation vents. I don't know if we have those here, but if you have them, are they closed when wildfire threatens, but opened after the wildfire has passed? And the other one is non-closable vents have detached closure devices that can be easily accessed and attached during a wildfire and removed after the threat has passed. Who is going to have time to open and close these during an evacuation? If you actually have these in a wildfire prone area, it seems like you could install the 1/8-inch metal mesh in there. This would be good to check with your fire department, but that was the theory I was having, was just like leaving your windows open or closed. You don't open and close these, I wouldn't think. So anyway, just something to consider. This is one of the more controversial ones. Dryer vents and wall-mounted air openings for furnaces are screened with 1/8-inch corrosion-resistant metal mesh. The one on the left is a dryer vent, and the one on the right is a furnace vent. It's interesting because the researchers say you should screen the vents to prevent the ember intrusions, and the fire marshals are more worried about the screens on there trapping the lint as it's trying to come out and giving a place for the sparks to land. So this is a controversial one. Definitely clean out the lint trap in your dryer with every load of laundry, so there's less likelihood of lint accumulating in the vent or coming out of the house. It's another maintenance issue. Here's a picture of a dryer vent that closes unless the dryer is running. So the answer here would be yes. Okay, this deck is built of, well, this deck is not built of non-combustible materials, no. And worse still, this one is dried out and not well maintained. If you have a wood deck, keep the wood stained and in good repair. And remember the tips about flashing at the edges I showed you before. That word intumescent comes up again here. Intumescent paint is supposed to prevent or delay combustion, but it's expensive and it has to be reapplied very often by a professional. So if you hear that word, that's what it means. You might want to look for other options in addition. Here's a deck made of non-combustible material. This is Trex. If embers land on Trex, it will melt and fall down. I know of in the Black Forest fire, when the Crown Fire was coming, whole neighborhoods have lost, all the decks just fell off the edges of the house, but they didn't catch on fire. And then look up here in the upper left right corner. I'm going to zoom in there. See how the homeowner made sure that the intersection between the deck and the house has the metal flashing to protect the siding of the house, which is wood, even though the deck is not combustible, but the wood is still there. So that's good. Okay, let's go to page 7. About a quarter of the way down now. We're in the home stretch. Combustible materials are not stored under the deck and are placed at least 30 feet away from the home. And this is where you want to watch for gas grills, lumber, firewood, anything like that should be 30 feet away from the house or in the garage where the door can close. And somebody asked me about that earlier. So like with propane tanks, if you're evacuating from a fire, that's what our fire marshal told us, was either put the propane tank in the garage and close the door so it has less chance of getting heated up, or throw it way out into the forest. That was the 2 options he told me. A lot of bad examples in these 2 pictures. They really should have metal skirting around under that deck and all sorts of things. Let's see. Okay, metal screens or sheet metal can enclose the underside of the deck, like I just said, to prevent you from storing things under there. And it removes the need to rake under there also, and it prevents embers from getting under the house. So just because it's a nice storage area doesn't mean you should use it as that. It can create danger. Debris is removed from between the deck board joints and other areas where it can accumulate. This is another one of those that's free. I really love this tool. It's got you don't even have to kneel down to clean out in between the boards. But this maintenance makes a huge difference in your wildfire risk. Just doing this. It also keeps the boards from rotting. And like I said, the NFPA is recommending that the deck boards be at least a 1/4 inch apart. You can see an example on the right that one of the gaps is bigger, and that's better, but that small gap is going to be a lot easier for the debris to stick in there. And if it accumulates on the cracks above the joists that hold up the deck, then it's even a bigger problem. There are no rotted or degraded deck boards or structure support members. Here's an example of a big no. Okay, combustible items like deck furniture and cushions can be moved inside. Can be moved inside or as far away from the house as possible when a wildfire threatens. In this case, they could be moved inside, but they're not. And really, the way people live, I think it's more practical to keep the cushions stored away unless you're actually going to use them, because that way they'll always be in the safe place. And then if you're gone when the fire happens, they'll already be put away. More bad examples in this picture is the firewood on the deck. It shouldn't be stored there. It should be 30 feet away from the house. And this fire pit should have a screen over it. In my HOA, we have a minimum fine of $5,000 for open burning. And that's what this example is about to be. So this is a lot of bad examples too. when my friends were evacuating from the Black Forest fire, they called me and they said, "What should I do? I have 10 minutes." And I said, "Throw your deck cushions inside the house." "Really?" "Yes, you asked me, I'm telling you." And rake under the porch. Okay. Yes or no? Fencing attached directly to the home is made of non-combustible material and at least 5 feet long. Well, not in this case. A wooden fence like this can act like a fuse up to the house because it can catch fire at any point and then burn toward the house. When in the Waldo Canyon fire in Colorado Springs, the firefighters saw multiple houses get ignited because of their fences. So what you need to do here is put a metal flashing behind that last post where it touches the house. Or, here's another example. One section of this wooden fence has been replaced with metal slats that look like wood. This came from the Boulder Wildfire partners. In my HOA, they only allow wooden split rail fences though. So what do you do for firewise safety? Well, they said you can replace one section of the fence with metal tubular fencing that is aesthetically similar to the to the fence. But you have to get specific permission from the Architectural Control Committee, which I thought was funny. So we're working on that, but they're starting to find ways to still follow their intentions but make it look nice. So you don't want there to be any climbing vegetation growing on the fence. Where does this fence go? If this fence goes right toward your house, this is a really bad situation. The answer here is no. We're still on page 7 of the checklist, 2/3 of the way down. Are detached structures such as sheds, play sets, garages, etc., at least 30 feet from the home? If the answer is no, that's okay, but you have to look here. So you have to just analyze them as part of the footprint of the house, or one big 30-foot zone all around everything. See here how in the middle, the 5 to 30-foot zone of the house and the garage overlap each other in the middle. They're not quite that far apart. So the next question is, does every detached structure have its own defensible space? And what that means is every structure on the property has its own ignition zone that needs to be kept clear of fuel. The 0 to 5 foot fuel free zone and the discontinuous fuels going out to the 30-foot line. And like I said, in this case, the 2 home ignition zones for the 2 structures overlap. In this case, they're both owned by the same person, so they can cooperate very well. Here's another real life example. Around the main house and the detached structures, they've got the 0 to 5 foot fuel free zone and the 5 to 30-foot zone. And I'll zoom in so you can see this better. What is your initial feeling about the home ignition zone for this house and the sheds? Do you think they have some work to do? It's a little, I don't know if I zoomed in enough, but definitely in the 5 to 30-foot zone, there's a lot of continuous fuels, and by the house there is some greenery there, and it's hard to tell from here what it is, but it gives you some questions to ask anyway. So are detached structures made of non-combustible materials? I hope so. If they're not, if it's a wood shed, for example, go back to what I mentioned about the flashing and the maintaining and the keeping the grass cut and the fuel-free zone and all that. Vegetation is maintained on trellis-type structures and pruned regularly to remove dead undergrowth. Well, on the left there really is a trellis under there, unfortunately. They have a lot of work to do. And the plant on the right needs to be pruned. And really, we're going to learn more in Module 8 about firewise vegetation, but depending on what, I can't really see what that is, but depending on what the vegetation is, it might be better not to have it by your house at all. Just keeping it pruned might not be enough. Okay, go to page 8 on the home assessment checklist. Address markings are at least 3 inches tall or larger to be sure it's readable. Think about what happens at night. In these two examples, the answer is yes. Reflective numbers are better, and the signs should be mounted on a metal post, not a wood post that could burn or a plastic mailbox that could melt and fall over. I've seen both of those happen. The address should be visible from the road, not hidden, not just on the side of your house. Some people put their address right next to the light, and then the light casts a shadow so you can't see the number at night. Have you ever tried finding your own house at night just by reading the address numbers on the houses or on the, or that are the ones that are down by the street? Go out in your house tonight and look outside. You probably won't like it. The point here is that the house numbers, first of all, they let fire officials know there's even a house there. If they're trying to come in medical emergency, that might make the difference in the few seconds it takes to get to help you for a medical emergency. And when the smoke is thick, they might not even know there's a house there. They might not even be able to see past the hood of their truck because the smoke could be so thick. So something I learned recently was that the firefighters do a lot of structure protection at night when the fire behavior has moderated. So if they don't know your house is even there, they won't go in there and look for smoldering or spot fires. So help them out. Yes or no, the driveway is at least 12 feet wide and unobstructed. Well, not here. This is the driveway to a house, and there is a house back there somewhere, honest. The checklist only asks for 12 feet, but Dave Root, that you met tonight from the Colorado State Forest Service, he says the fuel reduction should be extend for 30 feet or 50 feet from each side of the driveway for safe ingress and egress. And remember that scrub oak, which that's what a lot of this is, when it's on fire, the flames reach 3 times as tall as the tree itself. And if the wind is blowing and these are on fire, the whole driveway will be completely blocked by flames. Firefighters decide in a 3-second triage whether or not they're going to try and save this home or whether or not they should use this whole street as a place to hold the line against the fire. So if you were them and you were right here, what would you do? I would probably keep going. Yes or no, gates are wide enough to accommodate emergency equipment. And also, when you're doing this one, just analyze the driveway. Is it full of switchbacks? Are the trees too close? Would they worry about not being able to get back out again if they went in? They should have a turnaround area at the house end of the driveway where they could escape again if they came in. And remember, they're making a split-second decision, and they need to know you've been doing the work to help them before they can help you in an emergency. Trees and shrubs overhanging the road are trimmed to a minimum of 13.5 feet. I thought that was funny, to allow emergency vehicles to pass without hitting low-hanging tree branches. Well, not here. This sign says low clearance 10 feet. So, and this is on a road. So this tree would prevent the fire department from being able to enter this whole neighborhood. I don't know what country this is in, but I just thought it was a great picture. Okay, so don't be overwhelmed. Focus on the home ignition zone and just follow the advice on the 8-page checklist, starting with the roof, the construction of the rest of the house, then the first 5 feet around the house, then the zone 5 to 30 feet from the house, looking at that continuous fuel. Then after that, work on the 30 to 100 feet zone and maintain the vegetation if you have that under your control. And whenever you have questions and you want to have somebody walk through it with you, that's the best way to do it, to look at your specific examples. And yes, your home ignition zone might overlap with your next door neighbors, the way lot sizes are. So that's when building the communication around the neighborhood can be helpful. Start with your neighbor, buy them a chocolate cake or a bottle of wine or something. First, you're becoming informed, and then you'll be able to help your neighbors learn from you. And then that's what we're doing here. I'm so glad you're all in this here. We can all cooperate to get it done, but it doesn't happen instantaneously. So the overlapping home emission zones in this neighborhood, they definitely overlap. But it's in a suburban neighborhood, so they might not even think about wildfires. But each one of these homes has a home emission zone that needs to be analyzed for vulnerabilities, just like you're doing using that 8-page checklist to look at the way the house is built, but also to look at what vegetation they have and what's grown up over the years and how they've maintained it. So Dr. Jack Cohen says, private homeowners have the primary responsibility for home wildfire protection. And of course, you know this, we don't mean you're standing there with a garden hose on the day of the fire, because you're going to be gone then. So the best, education is the best defense. Make a list of what you need to do, starting with the house, and go out from there. Those little things that make the most impact, rake out under your steps and, keep the leaves off the gutters. As your neighborhood starts doing more projects together, you can whittle away what needs to be done on the big side and what fuels need to be removed.
Okay, before we go to homework, Lisa, let's not do that. We have a lot of questions and comments, so
Okay.
I'd like to get those knocked out here before we get to the homework.
Mhm.
And the first one comes from Kim, and she asked that, where was the foil, and this goes back to the video, where was the foil face tape used and how did it help on the deck? And I think Jim's answer answers it. It's, I think it was under the decking and on top of the joist, possibly because the joists were flammable and the surface decking was synthetic and non-flammable. And that's where I saw it. It was basically on the side of the joist here and provided similar protection like flashing that you would see to it.
Yep, that sounds good. Yep.
Ed has a comment, if a gas shutoff requires a tool, then wire that tool to the gas meter. I completely agree with that. Both Lisa and I have used that technique here for ours when you're trying to find your tool. And they're really cheap from Amazon, like less than $10. You can get it. And then I basically Velcroed mine. Nancy Valter showed or at least provided a video from United Policyholders here. Talks about how to read your policy and know if your insurance is adequate. If it's, I haven't seen this video myself, but if I would highly recommend folks look at their maybe, I think you may have mentioned it, Lisa, the basement, and make sure that the basement and foundation are covered under your policy. And we had folks that had lost their homes in Waldo Canyon and were not able to rebuild their house because the foundation was basically superheated and brittle. So they lost everything, and then they had to come up with more money out of their own pockets because their insurance did not cover their basement. Okay, here's a question. So this is from Smina. So the wood door, the door of the wood stove is the screen, or do we need to have another screen in front of that?
I can't picture all the possible meanings of that. That's why I want to teach you the concept of, is there a way for the embers to sneak out of that wood stove onto your carpet?
Yeah, I think we're talking, if you have the doors closed, that's sufficient. Most of those doors are built for that, much better than a screen anyway. Let's see, Ed has a comment. Do not store oily rags in a closed container. They will spontaneously combust. I've not had the experience with that. So, and then Jim follows up with, so what do you do with them? And I think well, I know, you show that, you store them 30 feet away from the house or in a container 30 feet away.
What I've seen some people do too is, if you really you have a lot of them, sounds crazy, but they lay them all out to evaporate first before they pile them up.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Craig Stewart has a comment. Some roofs are not Class A unless they have an approved underlayment on the roof deck here. I think I've heard that as well. And then
sometimes it's called the roof assembly. Yeah.
And then the wire vent mesh can also help keep the snow out of your attic. Yeah, we had some folks that had
Oh,
snow blow into their attic here because they weren't properly screened, and then they had a different type of problem.
huh.
Stephen Kane has a question. Is the chimney wire mesh also what is called a spark arrestor?
I don't know. That's a good, I don't know. That's a good question. It probably is, but I can't say 100%.
I've
I did a
seen
little
them
looking
that
online, and it looks like it might be some of the chimney caps that have mesh like that. They call them spark arrestor caps.
It sure sounds good, doesn't it? Yeah. Okay. Well, keep doing that research, people.
I've heard that as well, Stephen. So I would agree with that. Jim has a question. If you have wood siding, what minimal risk it may be? Why can't you store firewood next to the house? Would that add to the risk?
Oh, yeah. Well, you want to have a 0 to 5 foot fuel-free zone and no firewood in your fuel-free zone.
And you know, that generates heat. It burns at twice the flame length here too. So think about it from that perspective here, and the sparks can get into all those crevices and cracks, and you know, most of those, most of your wood has bark on it and other combustibles. So yes, move it away from your house. And a cool, stylish thing that folks would do, and I had it when I moved in my house, it would stack the wood between the trees because it would stack well. You could use it as braces, but now you're building up, you're reducing your flame length, or I'm sorry, your mitigation to the, you're basically like creating a ladder fuel all in itself by having a wood stack between your trees. Okay, let's see. Ed comment, where does the snow drift? Where do needles and leaves pile up?
Well, like, for example, the wind blows the leaves under my front steps all the time. And then that's the wind, that same wind it would blow the embers in that same little, where the wind slows down, they like to hide under there. So for example, you'll have to look at the wind patterns at your own house.
Yep. Matthew responded, yes, risk of direct flame contact, which I think he might have been talking about the firewood piece. So yep,
Matthew, if you want to speak up, you weren't there before, but Matthew, if you want to jump in, please do.
Oh, sure. So yeah, normally we recommend the firewood's going to be 30 feet away from the house and not under trees, because firewood's main goal in life is to catch on fire. So the best place is away from the house.
Yep. And has a comment, a common science experiment is blocking a heat source with reflective oil to measure the difference in absorbed energy. So tape foil shiny side out, inside at the lowest floor windows to increase their heat resistance. And Craig copied a picture in. I'm not sure what the picture is of Craig, and here, do you have a description of what you uploaded, just briefly?
Yes, there should have been some text along with the image, but it's just pointing out the type of roof vents that all the new builders are using now in this area. And it's all solid, just plastic. There is no screening at all. So the embers can actually, burn right through these vents and drop into the attic. That is a shot of my roof. Actually, it's a Class A roof, but it's really no longer Class A when you have these type vents all over the roof. My roofer was in on the Black Forest fire, and he was telling me about how these embers will fall down on the roof, blow up against the vent, burn through, and then drop into the attic. And he actually cited a couple of instances where an ember burned most of the way through the vent and just was barely hanging on, on the roof vent before, if it had dropped in the attic, it would have, caught the place on fire.
All right, thank you, Craig. We'll include that on the post-session transmission along with the link that we received earlier from Nancy for everybody's benefit. Jim has a comment. Our fire department in Bailey's these green address signs available to order for only $10. So that's awesome.
Oh, great. Yeah.
And then Kim volunteered as another home assessment, house and property in Rivers Divide. So Lisa will consider that in the list of volunteers she has. We're trying to keep the houses close together if we can do it, because we want to give the opportunity to do a demo, travel to the next one, and then have everyone perform one as a individual and then come back together as a group. So
I might have to just go out to Rivers Divide and meet Kim, and we'll have a cup of tea.
Sure, that's for sure too. And if you have questions about particular areas around your house too, I would say take pictures of those and send them to Lisa and I, and then give us as wide a panorama as you can, in that particular area, so we can have the perspective, or shoot a short video and let us see it if we're not covering the ones here that we have. So Lisa, that appears to be all the questions and comments.
Okay, so for this week, well, we're not going to actually see each other. Next Zoom meeting we have will be on April 6th. So in between, you've got time to go through all 8 pages of the checklist on your own house, come up with your questions and start your priority list, and that's your homework. We'll see some of you in person on March 30th. If we can't, if you can't make it to any of the demonstrations that we're doing, hopefully within these 3 weeks in between, you'll contact your local experts to have them come out and look at your property, probably, or neighbors if they want to do it. And that's what's coming up in the next couple of weeks, and we'll be back on Zoom on April 6th.
Yeah, for the addresses, we'll still do the coordination with folks via the ones that are looking to volunteer via email. But when we have the final first houses that we will do the meet with, we'll update the calendar invite, and I'll also send out a separate email too, to make sure that folks have the right addresses, to those places. So we'll all meet at the first house, and then once we're there, we'll basically caravan from the first house to the second house. So we keep everybody together and we're not having folks search. If you feel like you're going to come in late, to it because, life happens, and let us know. That session on the 30th is not going to start at 6 like we've normally started here, or 6:30. We're starting that one at 4 o'clock because we want to take advantage of the daylight. So please note that we're starting that session a little bit early that day, so we capture as much daylight as we can for that particular session. All right, I think that's all that we have for administrivia here, and just please continue working. I know it feels like the homework is starting to pile up that we're giving you here, but I just take it one step at a time and then work on that one aspect. It doesn't all have to be finished, here immediately. I would rather you have good progress and have a solid foundation than race to do it partially and not put yourself in a good position going forward in the summer. So if it has to extend past, our date and you're not there, I think that the important goal is that you're building a system here, and you're making yourself more prepared to launch an effort inside your neighborhood. So the background that we've given you here on the home assessments, like Lisa and Dave have both talked about, you can get very technical about it and have lots of disagreements about it. You get 2 or 3 experts around, you'll find there'll be some form of disagreements. Focus on the big picture things, and there's plenty to do. So I think long as you're progressing with the big picture in mind and working steadily towards it here, we're giving you the background to start off, but the focus, once again, it will be on the neighborhood preparedness and the neighborhood gathering and the cohesive work between the neighbors in that neighborhood to get things going. And then you can argue about, you know, whether or not I have clumps or, you know, if it's 15 or 30 or 5 feet here. We're still using those guidelines as we've, you know, Lisa's talked about here, but, you know, don't forget literally in this one, the forest for the trees in this perspective. Okay, any questions or comments before we go? I know we ran just a little bit long tonight.
Andre, this is Kristen. I was wondering if there would be a chance you could videotape the event that you're going to do on the 30th, because it sounds like it's going to be down in the Colorado Springs area.
Yeah, I think we're planning for Lisa's group to film their particular demo here. So you're still on track for that, right, Lisa?
Right. We're gonna have 2 live demos. Andre will be up in Bailey and I'll be in the Monument area. And yes, we are gonna figure out how to videotape that. I will see how that works.
Good question. Any other ones before we go? Okay. So just a reminder, no Zoom meeting next week. And so our next session will be 2 weeks from today, either in Monument or in Bailey, Colorado. So please look for those addresses as well. I'll try to get those out to you as soon. I'd say no longer than a week from today. So I want to have everybody have that in their hands before then. One thing that I would ask for folks, if you do decide to come, please bring a clipboard with you here. So we're going to give you, you know, a checklist to use and bring a writing utensil with you. So we want you to be able to, you know, walk a property and fill out one of those checklists while we're out there. So you're not having to write on, you know, just a single sheet of paper here along the way. So please bring some sort of backing or a clipboard or something like that with you. Okay, Lisa, any other comments before we go?
Just keep writing down your questions and all your good, gosh, these are great questions. And I'm sorry, sometimes I can't think straight. And but I don't know everything. Andre doesn't know everything. But what I love is that you're all thinking about it and you're trying to figure it out, and so that you can share this with other people as you go out into your neighborhood. So that's the most important thing.
Thank you, Lisa. Dave, any comments before we go?
You know, I'll just throw in one thing way back at the beginning when we were looking at the photo of the mountain mahogany, that, you know, there's differences of opinion about how dangerous mountain mahogany is. You know, I think something everybody could agree on is it's not as bad as dense stands of gamble oak, but for instance, in that photo, I would have, at the very least, try to prune that one tree up and remove the mountain mahogany ladder fuel out from beneath the tree. You know, generally it tends to be clumpy with a lot of space in it. So I wouldn't make trying to treat something like mountain mahogany a higher priority than doing the 5-foot non-combustible barrier, the defensible space around the house. But, you know, any kind of woody fuel could burn. And, you know, given your overall priorities, try to treat that as best you can.
So Dave, this is Kristen. So what are your thoughts on 3-leaf sumac and rabbit brush? Because where we live, rabbit brush grows like a weed everywhere.
Again, I would try to treat it And I'm not really familiar with rabbit brush, so probably I can't give you great advice. But with any fuel, try to break up the continuity of the fuel so that you don't have even something like rabbit brush, a raging fire going continuously through the crown of the fuel. And, you know, the rule, the guideline for gamble oak is separate it by 2.5 times, separate the clumps by 2.5 times the height of the adjoining oak. And I would probably follow that general guideline again for any kind of shrub like mountain mahogany or sumac or even rabbit brush.
All right, thank you, Dave. Appreciate that. Yeah, it's all a perspective. You can't treat it individually. You have to treat it how it sits in the environment that it's in. So you have to take all of that in perspective. All right, last, Matthew, any comments before we go?
Nope, great job.
All right, folks. Well, thank you. Appreciate your participation once again. Really appreciate all the great questions and comments. And I'm glad to see everybody back. We've done 3 sessions, you know, so far, and the group is staying pretty tight here. And so I really appreciate everybody hanging with us. We know it's a lot of material, and we ask a lot of your time, but we really appreciate your patience as we go through this here. So I'm looking forward to it, and just once again, keep working on your homework here. So with that, that concludes tonight's session, and look to see you here in a couple of weeks. And I'll send out the material, slides and video here later tonight. Thank you, and have a great night. You're clear to drop.
Thank you.